you see now. During World War II. The true image of the bombing of Tokyo, Japan. On the night of March 9, 1945, 334 SB-29 bombers take off from Guam. Straight to Tokyo, more than 2,000 tons of incendiary bombs. Target point for Tokyo. Soon after, more than 200,000 buildings in a quarter of Tokyo. Copy bases. 100,000 people were burned in the air. 80,000 people were burned. Due to the fact that the houses in Japan at that time were all wooden structures, this enhances the power of the incendiary bombs. Strategic bombing, more casualties than later atomic bomb attacks. Even worse. This bombing, a quarter of all buildings in Tokyo were destroyed. The death toll. It also set a single air raid crime in World War II. But strategic bombing, it will not be given to the Japanese army. How many direct casualties did you bring? But this would be a huge cut. The potential combat power of the weak Japanese army. For example, Japanese factories in Tokyo that produce tanks and aircraft and other resources are destroyed one by one. Battle-damaged equipment is difficult to replenish. So too, ways to weaken the combat capabilities of frontline troops. Therefore, it will silently change the battle. The balance of power between the warring parties. 2 months later, Tokyo's nightmare is back. May 9, 1945. More than 300 B-29 bombers from the US military then arrived in Tokyo. Dropped a large number of incendiary bombs on Tokyo. This air raid create another area of Tokyo, everything within 56 square kilometers, turned to ashes. Hundreds of thousands of houses were burned down. Tens of thousands more were burned to death. The initial American bombing of the Japanese mainland. It's just intermittent airstrikes. Because it was too far from the Japanese mainland at that time, the 25th bomber they sent. Japan's battery life and disaster volume are limited. Did not deal a substantive blow to Japan. Until the second half of 1944, the US military B-29 Super Air. The successful development of the Fortress bomber. This bomber not only has the speed and endurance been greatly improved, and most importantly, it can carry 9,000 kilograms of bombs. After the US Army captured Saipan and Guam one after another, after controlling the air superiority of Japanese airspace from December 1944. So the US military dispatches planes almost every day, heading for airstrikes over Tokyo. The Just 29 of this plane, he can fly up to 10,000 meters, and will not be threatened by Japanese anti-aircraft guns. May 26, 1945, during the last air operation of the US military, the unprecedented bombing of Tokyo has resumed. This time, the US military dispatched more than 500 bombers to clean up. Then more than 4,000 tons of incendiary bombs were dropped on the target. Finally, the 3 major air raids after 1945. That killed about 140,000 people in Tokyo. The architecture of 3/4 of the area is a scorched earth. More than 1 million people are homeless. Except for Tokyo, like Nagoya, Osaka, Kobe. These cities in Japan at that time also suffered from devastating bombing by the US military. It can be said that the fire burned all over Japan. Millions of Japanese became refugees. The bombing of Tokyo, perhaps in human history, the most destructive one. Non-nuclear airstrikes. It was also these airstrikes. It was then that Japan began to consider an armistice. Until August 6 and 9, 1945. Audio in the US Army. Hiroshima and Nagasaki dropped 2 atomic bombs. It became the last straw to overwhelm the Japanese government. So the Showa Emperor of Japan at that time, forced to declare unconditional surrender. World War II. It ended in a victory for the Allies.